B-Bad and Brandon.
How have you been, brother?
Good, man. Good. Just, locked up here in Canada, but, doing what we can. So,
And what's the situation like over there?
some provinces are starting to open up. Like I know BC, I think they're almost back to normal, but here in Ontario, like we're still locked inside, like just businesses with street entrances are open. No gyms are open. So
Yeah.
Damn.
Still a bit weird.
Are you able to keep a bit of training up yourself, bro?
Yeah, I've got a squat rack in the basement, so I do whatever. I don't know, squat every day, pretty much. So
Sweet.
Oh,
that's a
rough.
good day.
yeah,
I don't know if I could handle that. Fuck.
it's funny because like I don't have a bench; I just have a squat rack,
Yep.
and it's not like my upper body can get any smaller. So it's really just adding to my own. So
That's awesome. Man, thank you so much for joining us. Obviously, this morning over there at 6 a.m. I really appreciate. I had to work out. I had to use like an app on Google to work out the time difference, and then I realized later that Zoom just did it itself. I was quite embarrassed. I was like, "Fuck."
Oh,
But
yeah, it's funny. Like I coach a couple people and like work with a couple people in Australia, and sometimes it's like time travel depending on what time it is here. Like I'm talking to people in the past, like I'm coming out of the future talking to them.
Yeah.
So
because you're what? It's Saturday the 30th there.
yeah.
Yeah, sweet. The morning of it. We're Saturday night.
yeah. Because we had Ed Cohn this morning, but
Yeah.
that was him last night on Friday. That was
Yeah.
yeah.
Fuck yeah, that was
Really weird.
savage too.
Yeah, that was weird. All right, sir. I'm going to ask you a big question, and you only are allowed 21 words to answer it. Brandon counts all the words and the sounds. Who you are and what you do.
So my name's Killian Hamilton. Primarily on the internet, I work with pre-script.
Oh, no. We lost him.
We did.
Oh, my back.
Yeah, we're back. There we go.
We might have to go take two.
We'll go take two. We got this again.
Take two. I'm Killian Hamilton. I work with Prescript as a head coach. I also run a consulting business, K2 Coaching, and I use skill acquisition as a model to train and educate people on performance.
We're going to go with roughly 21 words.
That was exactly 21.
Yeah, that was perfect. That was great, mate.
Must have been, yeah.
Yeah, I was like, there's a bit of lag in there. Then I was like, we'll just give it to him. That was the best one we've had so far.
Oh, yeah. I like that one.
100%.
Man, what's your background for training? Where did it all start for you? In the garage somewhere in school?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting. Like I started playing like sports when I was younger. I ran track and field first. I wanted to play like American football, but they don't really have that here. So I played rugby instead. I played rugby for like 10 years, got 9 concussions.
Oh, shit.
Yeah, so I'm not allowed to play contact sports anymore. So when I got my 9th concussion, I started going to the gym. And then from there, I'm really dumb. So bodybuilding seemed really complex. Like there was a lot of exercises. And then powerlifting was just 3. So I just picked the easier one to understand. That's the reason I ever did powerlifting. Like I just wanted to do bodybuilding and there was too many arm exercises. So I just went powerlifting instead.
That's fucking great. Mate, I forgot Canada is not a big like American football country, and obviously playing rugby is so prominent over here. What position did you play?
I started at outside center.
Yes, but boy,
as I didn't grow and everyone else grew, I eventually became a scrum half by the end.
That explains the 9 concussions.
Yeah, it's exactly what happened. I started in a good position and I never got touched by anyone. And as I got shorter and people got taller, I just eventually got beat up by everyone.
That's fuck. 9 concussions. That's brutal. I think I got 1 in my whole time playing rugby. Mind you, it was pretty bad, but it was fun.
Yeah, no, like I had 9. The last one I had was pretty severe. Like I ended up having like a hemorrhage and I lost some vision in my eyes. Like I had blood that ended up like both my eyes were full of blood and I lost vision for a few weeks. So
holy shit, dude.
Jesus. Yeah, probably good not to go for number 10.
Yeah. And then I went to train for bobsled and then I just lied about having a concussion. I had someone else do my concussion test for me. And
Yep.
Yeah,
really? So did you do bobsled?
yeah.
Wow.
Yeah,
What's that like?
Dude, it's the craziest thing in the world. I think it's the most underrated sport performance-wise, and just like balls-wise. Like you have to have big balls. It's pretty. Yeah. I don't know. I'm a pussy, so it's pretty scary. But no, it's a lot of fun, man. Go real fast, and lots of Aussies do it, man. So that's fun too. Like it's just like it's a bunch of guys that just hang out and jump in fiberglass sleds
and go real fucking fast down a hill.
Real fast, yeah. It's just huge jack dudes who run fast and party.
Fuck, we should bond.
I want to play that sport.
Yeah, I feel like that's a sport I could be good at because, like, obviously there's an element of skill involved, but really, I'm just going to lay on a bobsled and fucking go for it.
Yeah, it's like if you're not the pilot, after the first 5 seconds, you don't do anything.
You just sit there.
So it's great, yeah. It's like if you ran 100 meters and then jumped in an F1 car is basically what it is.
Fuck,
that's cool. How quick would it go?
The fastest I ever went was 149 kilometers an hour.
Holy shit.
Jesus. Yeah. Did you ever have any big stacks in that?
No, like luckily I never crashed and I wasn't very good. So I got out of a lot of situations just by sucking, but, yeah, it's probably something I'll still go back to again, but I think it's just underrated in terms of how hard it is. Like there's no amateur bobsledding.
Yep.
Wow. Like, there's only the Olympics, right? Like this isn't a sport on the weekend, so it's pretty cool to get to try it.
Man, that is awesome. So you've had a bit of like exposure to a variety of sports, and coming into coaching, was that just something that happened because you got involved with powerlifting?
Yeah, like when I first started working out, I got into powerlifting because it was easy to understand, and I at the time, like this would have been, I guess, 10 years ago now. Powerlifting resources were like West Side Barbell is the only thing you could read, right? Like you're gonna read Louis Simmons or Dave Tate, and it was like Dave Tate's just Louis Simmons anyway, so it's like that's all you're getting. So I kind of got it in through there, and I was just coaching myself and training at a gym. Yeah. And I just decided, I was like, I could probably teach people how to do this. It seems pretty simple. And at the time, barbell wasn't really big. Mm-hmm. People were still like, on Bosu balls and like the TRX or whatever. So I thought, there might be people like me out here who want to use a barbell, and maybe this is an avenue I can go down. And I think luckily I started when I did, like 10 years ago now, so that I kind of have a foothold in something, right? As mediocre as maybe the footprint is I don't think I'd have the footprint if I started yesterday.
Yeah, absolutely. It's now like I think 10 years ago, well, actually you're a bit older, you would have started
12, 13.
Yeah, fuck.
Yeah, I'm old.
Yeah, you are old, but I'm like 10 years ago is exactly around the time I got into it as well, and since then barbell sports have just taken off completely. Yeah, it's insane.
Man, it's all headbands and knee sleeves and cool haircuts now, and it's crazy. Everyone was bald when I started, so.
So was training for you, did you train West Side conjugate style? Was that it? Because that was what you sort of come across when you first kicked off?
Yeah, sadly, man. Like my first year of working out in the gym was conjugate, which is probably like the worst way to ever start training. So, I'd maxed out twice a week, and I was like deadlifting 110% every week for 6 months. And,
but did you get stronger?
Oh yeah, for sure. Getting stronger either. I didn't look like the process.
I love the fact that, coming to the gym as a beginner and you choose conjugate. Like, obviously, as you said, that's the only information available. And like now as a coach, you look back, you're like, what the fuck was I thinking?
Yeah. I always think, like, I look back at it now, I'm like, man, if I would have just done 3 sets of 10 for everything, I'd probably be twice as big as I am now.
Yeah.
I'm doing 10 sets of 2, you know what I mean? And I'm still the size of a 12-year-old boy, so what I get.
Oh, that's hilarious.
Did you do some comps back then as well when you were kicking around?
Yeah, I did like my first competition like 6 months into lifting.
Yeah.
I had no real idea what a powerlifting meet looked like. So I showed up, I gave my weight in pounds, and apparently it's all kg, and I didn't even know how to use kg at the time. So I was like, yeah, I'm going to do, 360, and they like wrote it down as kg. I was like, oh no, that's Jesus Christ. Like, no, it was 360 pounds, but no, it was cool. Like at the time too, I was like competing in a federation that had 24-hour weigh-in.
Sweet.
And I was like, man, I could probably cut a lot of weight if I really tried. So that's what I was doing too. Like I was competing at 146 pounds or 66 kg.
Oh, wow.
68 kg.
Yep.
Yeah.
66 kg. But like I would walk around at 170 pounds.
Damn.
Like I would cut from like, I'd cut from like 75, 77 kg. I'd cut to 66.
Holy shit.
Damn.
So, and like for me, like I would compete just to get a chance to cut weight.
Oh, really?
Like that was more exciting. I was like, well, powerlifting's just exercising in front of people. Like this is lame. I only listen to so much Metallica, but cutting weight was a lot of fun. So yeah, I can look at Disturbed and Metallica only so many.
Oh, bro, I'm so glad you said it. Disturbed. We have one lifter here. Shout out Luke Poley.
Same song every session,
bro.
Every top set, many top sets, same song.
It was funny because when I first got into powerlifting, I never really listened to like Metallica, AC/DC, Disturbed.
Yeah.
And then after my first few comps, I was like, oh, this is sick. Like, this is, new music.
Same
and
playlist.
then 3 years on, I'm like, fuck, and someone changed the playlist. Like,
I don't know if you guys know Down With The Sickness. That's a new song, I think, from Disturbed.
Yeah, I'll make sure to throw that one in the Spotify for the next session.
You'd be blown away. It's literally the song we hear every week, day in, day out.
Shout out Luke Polly.
Funny because like I got a chance when I was younger, when I first started, I got a chance to train at Westside.
What?
And within the first 15 minutes, all 3 of those songs played. It was like Disturbed, AC/DC, Metallica. The first like 15 minutes I was in the gym, and I was like, well, this is the right place to be.
Yeah.
How long into your lifting journey were you when you went to Westside?
A year and a half.
Wow. And how long did you spend there?
I spent just 3 days. It's kind of a crazy story. So I was like learning how to do powerlifting on my own. And at the time, I was just printing Louis Simmons articles off the internet because he posted them all for free. And I was like, well, I'm not going to buy the book. Screw this guy. I'll just print them off the internet. So I was like physically printing them on paper and like highlighting them and taking them to the gym. And like I was like younger at the time. I was like 19 and 18, 19. And my dad knew like that I was doing this. And like he obviously thought it was super dangerous. Me like lifting all this weight or whatever. So he calls Louis Simmons on the phone.
What?
Yeah. And he's like, hey, like, my son reads all your articles and like, I don't know what he's doing, but it seems pretty dangerous. But so like where the Westside gym is and where my family's from is like 4 hours away from one another.
Yeah.
So basically my dad had said to Louis, like, hey, like we're going to go down and visit family. Like, could I bring my son by the gym? Like, I think he'd really like to just see it or take a picture or whatnot. And then Louis like, no, fuck you. So I was like, my dad's like, all right, what big deal? I don't care. But Louis Simmons was like, your son can come if he trains here.
Yeah,
like, he only gets to come in the gym if he trains. And my dad's like, well, that's a better option. So like, he doesn't take it up with me or anything. It's like the next day he's like, all right, Saturday, like we're going to drive 8 hours to Ohio and we're going to go train at Westside. I'm like, what the fuck? So we do. We drive 8 hours, get out of the car, go right into the gym, and it's like max effort lower body day.
After sitting in a car for 8 hours.
Yeah, and I just get like, of course, it's not max effort with like a barbell. It's like max effort with, a cambered bar with kettlebells hanging off of it to like a foam box or some bullshit. I don't know how to use this stuff. I train at a commercial gym. So yeah, I just got crushed for like 4 hours on Saturday. Yep. And then I go back Sunday and it's like max effort upper body. And it was like, Jesus Christ. And then like Monday, it's like dynamic lower body. It's like 3 days in a row. I'm like 148 pounds. By the end of it, I was like 180 pounds. Like the inflammation, I just like, yeah. And like the D-ball in the water, I just got huge in 3 days.
Oh. Yeah. Fuck. Was it, what were the guys that trained there like when a young fellow like you rocked up? Were they intimidating, friendly, or?
They were like, at first, like it's visually intimidating to see like everybody's 300 pounds. And it was like, dude, one guy dropped below 300 pounds and they kicked him out. It was like in the workout, he was like, oh, like I weighed in 279. They're like, get out.
Oh, that's so savage.
Right. Like, this guy gets kicked out of the gym like 5 minutes in. But no, it's crazy. Like everyone was super nice there and super supportive. Yeah. Mm-hmm. But like it was me that was there like as a guest. There were two guys who worked for Blackwater, like the military
Yeah.
Like the mercenaries, like two of those dudes were there, like two military contractors, two guys from the UFC were all training. So it was pretty neat. There was like the West Side team and then like the guests like us that were being taken through a workout, and everyone was super supportive though. It was real cool. And
that's insane.
That's sick. And if you mention raw lifting, you're an idiot. Like everyone was like, that's stupid. Why would you ever do that?
Raw lifting's a warm-up.
Yeah, exactly. Put this denim jacket on your legs. It's like, what the fuck?
Did you have a run in the multiply and single ply stuff that day?
I wore power predator briefs or something, like just the brief, and it was excruciating, man. Like I got 200 lashings. Like I looked like a purple tiger when I left there.
But no regrets, I bet. Loved every minute of it.
Dude, it's a crazy weekend. Like I always say, like regardless of if I would ever do conjugate now, and obviously I'd never wear a multiply, whatever. It's like the experience of going there and realizing how hard you have to work to do powerlifting. Like that's something everyone should realize. Like it's not a hobby, right? It's not 60 seconds on Instagram. Like these are people that get bailed out of jail to compete at powerlifting. That's hardcore. That's sick.
That's fucking sick.
It's the greatest. Like that documentary that came out on Netflix, West Side vs. the World. It's like they highlighted the stories, but it's like they were the tame stories. Like that was watered down. I want to see a full doco where it's just like
real stories, full
shit, like bailing people out of jail just so they can fucking train.
And like some crazy stuff, I've heard, I can't substantiate it or not. I'm not going to throw anybody under the bus, but like other stories of like guys buying EQ from like farmers co-ops and like shooting it like heroin in the parking lot. Like crazy, man. Like guys like sticking needles in their butts in like the parking lot of a farmer's co-op and like the breakfast restaurant before you go train. Like that's hardcore. That's what lifting should be, or at least like that's the sentiment. Like, you're down to do that, right? Like,
that's fucking powerlifting.
And that's why I started doing it, because it was a bunch of bald dudes that were bigger than me. If I got into powerlifting now and it was like 148-pound kids who are computer engineers, I don't think I'd want to do the sport, right? So.
100%.
I think that document is great.
Powerlifting owes a great deal to what Louis Simmons created and that whole animalistic grunge style training. It's like, where would we be today?
Yeah. It's like, it's the same to be said like with like Dorian Yates for bodybuilding.
Oh, 100%.
Dude, the dungeon is sick. Dorian Yates is the most uneducated wild man ever. I don't know if blood and sweat, whatever training program is good for you, but sure as hell makes me want to do it. So I think the same can be said for powerlifting, right?
It's funny you bring him up. We have a bloke at the gym that I coach out of. He backspots all our comps, and he's one of the most Grant Sandow.
Oh, yeah.
He's one of the most like lunatic dudes, and trained with Dorian Yates back in the day over in the UK. But here's the thing: to train with Dorian and his crew, you had to be able to bench 4 plates at any time. You have to walk. I was just like, what? And like this guy, he's benched over 500 pounds. So he just walked in and was like, yeah, cool, let's go. It's just fucking, and they were just hardcore people. It's just fucking insane. But as you said before, it's like to be the best in these arenas, like you got to be willing to do whatever and be that sort of crazy mentality.
Yeah, 100%. I think that's like the half measures we see people take now, right? Like how many times do you guys see somebody do one powerlifting meet and they're a powerlifter? They do no powerlifting meets and they're a powerlifter. And it's
or a powerlifting coach, even better.
Oh, that's the one.
Yeah, like coaches in their bio, or like everything's an injury apparently. Like people have these injuries that last a week. Like I've never had a real injury that lasted, one training session that sucked, right? Like I never tore my hamstring on Monday and then was doing belt squat on Thursday, like torn hamstring with torn hamstring. Yeah, so I think it's like we've lost that plot, right? With just how temporal the internet is.
Oh, 100%, man. Like we were talking about this. I think we were actually talking about it with Jordan Shallow. Yeah. It's like the internet has really just watered down the hardcore mentality of what powerlifting is. Everyone's wanting to buy like the newest knee sleeves and the newest equipment. It's like, why don't you just fucking train a bit harder? And like, I mean, I understand, like I've been guilty of that before, but it just seems that it gets to a point where you're like, maybe I just need to fucking train hard and bust my balls. And if I tear something, that's a fucking lesson learned.
Yeah. And I think too, it's like same thing to be said about like RPE. Like RPE wasn't anything when any of us started. Like programs weren't RPE. It was just like add more weight to the bar, like do X percentage and get crushed. But it's like you can't effectively train RPE if you live at 7 RPE. Like if your life is a 7 RPE, then 7 RPE is a 10.
Yeah.
Like that's as hard as it's ever going. You have no perception of toughness, right? So I think that's that's either what hurts young athletes now, or it just makes everyone kind of a pussy. It's like, man, like if you got crushed under 120%, I'm sure you can guess a 7 RPE. But if all you've ever worked up to is that in your life, like your solution is going to be tighter knee sleeves, not training harder.
Yeah,
100%.
Tighter belt, fucking tighter wraps.
Yeah.
It's big, longer wraps, longer. It's just so true though. Like, you know, it's one of the quotes that Jordan says all the time. It's like, you don't know 10 till you go to 11. And it's like the biggest lesson I learned in powerlifting was being crushed by a squat bar, like that thing rolling over my fucking head. And it's like, and it also took away the fear. It's like, oh, cool, I'm still alive. It's not going to hurt me.
Yeah, like I remember the first time I attempted like 225 kg on squat, it wasn't because I knew what 225 kg was. Like I thought the red plates weighed 20 kg. So I was like, yeah, give me 4 reds. And I just got annihilated because that was way too heavy. But after that's how much 500 pounds weighs. Now I get like that 225 kg.
Then you know what reds weigh.
Yeah, now I know that reds are heavier. So that was my first kg plates, was just getting annihilated. But now I know.
That's awesome. That is actually really cool. I had a similar experience, like going to the comps being like, what are these red plates? How heavy are they? Yeah. And I just want to say this for everyone listening. The 25 kilo plates, they just don't feel 5 kilos heavier than the 20 kilos.
They're way harder to load.
Bro, they are so much heavier. Don't give me this. It's like heavy. Yeah.
And they crush you. Like if I loaded 4 blues instead of whatever, 3 reds and a yellow, like I'll take the blues any day. I don't know what goes on when they put the red plates on.
Yeah, the gravity gets turned up or something, but it's fucked. Yeah. I'm so glad you said it. Fuck.
So how did your training evolve from conjugate, bro? What brought you away from it? Was it a path of education of your own, or what kind of was it?
Yeah, you know what it was? It was like 18 months of trying to be good at bench press and like speed, bamboo, bench press, earthquake bar. It like just wasn't working. And I remember like everyone that I hung out with that did bodybuilding at the time was really good at bench press. Mm-hmm. So then I just kind of like looked at what they were doing. Like, what do you guys do for upper body? And I was like, oh, you just do a lot of reps of bench press all the time. So then like, I was like, okay, well maybe I'll try this approach to like doing more volume. Mm. So I started like just doing like bodybuilding style training for about a year. Like I would just do sets. I would do like rep maxes starting at like a 10 RM. And this isn't a great program either, but I would start with like a 10 RM. And then over like 4 weeks adding weight, I'd work to like an 8 RM and then work to a 6 RM and eventually to a 2 RM. And I just kind of did like this really elongated progressive overload, but organically, where I would just cut reps as I loaded weight, which I guess you'd see more similar in like a bodybuilding style where they go from like whatever they do to, you know, power building. And I was like, well, I think there's some merit to this idea of volume. And then when that stopped working once a week, I had to figure out ways to add more days to it. And that's when I started looking at variation instead of like close grip bench, making my triceps stronger. I realized that close grip bench was just like a distance overload to regular bench. It's like my comp bench is so wide. When I do close grip, I'm not making my triceps stronger. I'm pressing the bar further because the distance is greater. The load is attenuated. And I was like, oh, I can add close grip in and my chest isn't as sore as if I did a third comp bench day, or my shoulders don't blow up. So a little bit of like education and reading, but then I think just taking a different lens to my training is what changed. I realized like, hey, the more often I do something, the better I get at it. Like I get really good at lower body movement because I squat 5 days a week. But that's just because I have the skill to do it, right? It's like skill versus will. I'm so good at squatting. I'll squat every day. I'm super motivated to do it. You know what I mean? I get to put my fat ass on the internet and guys slide into my DMs. So it's like there's
that's a lot of eggplant emojis.
Yeah. So it's like a ton of eggplant emojis slide in, and that's motivation. So with upper body, I just had to realize it was the same thing. It's like, man, if I take this approach to bench press and do it more often and no one slides in my DMs, my bird chest, it's like, maybe it'll work. So yeah, I think it was like my training just adapted to realizing like skill is acquired at a higher frequency. Mm-hmm. Like you can't learn to ride a bike if you ride a bike once a month. Couldn't learn to bench press by bench once a month.
That's a really good segue. And, you know, we're hopeless at segues on this podcast, but I wanted to get you on because you've become quite, I guess, for like, you know, a pioneer of skill acquisition and the model that you use in your own coaching. And I'd love to get more clarification around that for, you know, people listening. What is skill acquisition?
Yeah. So this is like, it's kind of crazy. I was reading an article like probably at 3 a.m. one day on like dual task learning in elderly people. Don't ask me how I found it. Like I just got it.
That's a wormhole, bro.
It is a wormhole. Yeah. Training elderly people. So I like left Shallow a voice note and I got all weird because Shallow like talks about like not being a tourist to physical activity, like being a permanent resident. Then I read this Socrates quote about art versus habitude and like mastering something. So I like call Shallow at 3 a.m. and I'm like, dude, wake up, listen to this. I'm like going off about Plato and Socrates and a bunch of bullshit. And he's like, dude, I'm not high enough nor awake enough for this. Like, shut up. So, from there, I was just like, man, I want to figure out a system in which I can explain things to people and just like break it down. So like, how can I justify the way I train being slightly different than other people or not just be like Dave Tate, alphanumeric exercise selection? So with skill acquisition, which is a commonly used tool, like when anyone acquires any skill ever, they use this. It's like cognitive, associative, autonomous. So cognitive skill acquisition is solely like a neurological adaptation where physiological stress doesn't exist. So like I always use the learning how to play music analogy of like when you first learn how to play an instrument, you learn how to read music. You don't ever touch an instrument. It's like, this is what notes look like, and this is what they're called, and this is how to read a piece of sheet music. Well, that's a neurological adaptation. I don't get to touch the piano or hold the guitar. So once you've learned that, once you've acquired like that cognitive adaptation to like, I can see a note, I can read it, perfect. The next thing you do is association, which associative skill acquisition would be like, now where's that note placed on the keyboard? So on the piano, where's A, where's E, where's G? I'm associating the reading the music with finding with my fingers where those notes are placed. So I'd be like learning scales and learning things like that. And then autonomous is once I know where all the notes are on the piano, I can learn a song because I don't now have to read the music, find the notes and play. I have the skill acquisition. So I've acquired the skill to read music. I've acquired the skill to locate notes. Now I combine the two. So autonomous is like, autonomous is cognitive skill acquisition is attenuated, physiological skill acquisition is increased. So I took this idea to like, how do people get good at the piano and how can you make people good at exercise? Same thing. I want someone to get good at barbell. Cognitive skill acquisition is like stability. Yep. So when I look at like Shallow, for example, have someone do a hip airplane, he looks at it from like developing stability in planes of instability. I look at it as when I want to go through a low bar squat, at some moment I'm going to go through hip extension, abduction, possibly suggested adduction and hip flexion. Those are going to be moment arms in a deadlift or a low bar squat. Like a long gait cycle lunge is going to be knee flexion, hip flexion, suggestion of external rotation, abduction. At some point in a squat, I'm going to go through all three of those things. In an unloaded walking lunge, I can go through them slower and with less physiological stress. I can move my body weight easily, so I can sit in these positions that I'm going to be into and I can understand how they feel. So if I warm up with like a walking lunge to sprinter pose, I'm going to go through all the same steps I would in a high bar front squat. Once I've gone through those and I can appease visual criteria that I can become stable and I can address them and do them accurately, I can...
Oh no. That was really good.
I know, it was going such a good one.
Are you still there, bro?
It's back. Yeah. Oh, did I pause? Sorry.
Yeah, it paused. It paused right after like, what's going on? It paused right after you talk about the sprinter pose lunge.
Okay, perfect. So if you go through sprinter pose, you go through lunge, you can visually appease the criteria that I can A, get into these positions, and B, I can find them without too much thinking or failing. Then I can add a barbell. When I add the barbell, I'm now adding physiological adaptation to this neurological ability. So now I can start to associate what I did in the walking lunge with the squat. Now I'm associating those positions with the barbell. I'm going to train that barbell movement associatively until technique breaks down. There's no point to do a bad high bar squat, no matter how heavy it is, because at the end of the day, exponentially, if you continue to practice bad reps, you do more bad reps than you do good. Now you're just a shit squatter. So basically you train associative until technique breaks down. When technique breaks down, you move to something autonomous, where now when you're in autonomous skill acquisition, there's little to no cognitive ability. It's all physiological ability. So think of like leg press or hack squat. Like if you can barbell squat, you can get on a leg press and turn your brain off and just load plates and go. But I'm still moving through hip flexion, knee flexion, abduction, external rotation on a leg press or a hack squat. I'm doing all the same things I was doing in the squat, but it's externally supported now. Now I'm just challenging physiological adaptation, and I'm no longer challenging cognitive adaptation. So in an hour, I get 60 minutes of the same skill being acquired or adapted to, versus, say, conventional lower body programming, where maybe I get 25 to 35 minutes of one skill being adapted to.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's skill acquisition. So I looked at training through that lens and thinking, like we had kind of segued into, it's like, how can I train something at a higher frequency but a better quality? And I was looking at it through that lens, and that's the same lens that I look at for variation or accessory movements too. Like I don't look at them as under this like microscopic lens of close grip makes your triceps stronger and front squat makes your quads stronger, because I don't think that's true. Like how many guys do you see in their program, like they'll bench, 150 kg competition, but their close grip bench is 80 kg. It's like, well, that 80 kg, 100 kg close grip's not translating to your 150 kg bench. Like the percentage is so low, right? Like I'm not challenging anything with that. In close grip bench, I still use my chest, I still use my shoulders, I still use my triceps, and I just proved that they can do 50 kg more. So what's this lighter, shittier bench doing? Nothing. But what it's allowing you to do is, because the load is so far attenuated, I can still go through pressing mechanics at a high frequency without facing recovery. So people look at these exercises like brown M&Ms taste more like chocolate. That's not the case. Like, dude, they're all M&Ms. Like, take the candy coating off, you dumb fuck. So it's like bench press is just bench press. They're all bench press. Like brown M&Ms don't taste more like chocolate. Close grip bench doesn't train your triceps more. All it does is create a greater distance in which you can press. So, and they've proven that, right? Like they've done studies on incline bench, flat bench, decline bench, and they train the chest the same. The pecs are under the same stimulus. It's anterior delt or like tricep that take more force. So none of these are better for chest development. They bias something or they attenuate something more. So I think if you use them in programming as ways that you can train at a higher frequency, you're going to get the result you were looking for, but it's just a way at looking at things with a better intention.
Yeah, 100%.
Because then like you'll see too, like where guys with big quads or whatever, they won't ever front squat. Because or guys with big triceps are like, well, I don't need to do close grip bench. It's like, why not? Why not front squat? Why not close grip bench? Like you're just making that statement because you have big quads. Like I could make the statement too, I don't need to front squat. My quads are huge. My arms are small. But like I still need to front squat. I'm still going to get benefit out of it. So that's kind of how I look at training, and that's how I look at skill acquisition, is like how can we bias physiological or neurological adaptation to train at the highest frequency recoverable?
Absolutely. And I mean, that was a great definition, by the way. Like that's really good. And how have you found that incorporating that with a client?
I found it works out really, really well, just because you can start to shift the intention from exertion to execution. And that's why like I haven't ever programmed RPE for anyone. I don't use it myself, and it's not something I don't think works. Like I know there's tons of guys who are successful with it. I think the most successful people either have like a really high training age or have coached themselves for a long time. I think everyone's either overshooting or leaving stuff on the table. But I train my clients with I call it like RTE, rate of technical exertion. So it requires a lot of feedback. Like videotaping all your top sets, not to post on Instagram, but just like I tell everybody, I'm like, watch it and delete it. But basically I assess volume from like not a rep range, but a set range. So it's like a given percentage for the week for a given amount of reps, and then the sets will vary. So someone might be programmed 5 to 7 sets. Someone might be programmed 1 to 5 sets. And it's like that way every set occurs on its own individually. And it's like, because some days you roll into the gym and like you guys know and I know, like you'll have one good set. And like all of a sudden the next set you just get crushed, even on drop downs. I've never been a good athlete at back off sets. Like once I hit a top set, I know the back offs are going to be trash and there's no point.
I'm there with you, brother.
So, and it's like I had a coach for a while where it was doing a lot of back off sets. And like I would hit 200 kg for a set of 5 on squat, and the back off would be like 160 kg, and the 160 would look like trash. And I was like, what am I getting out of this? Like, I'm just wrecking my back doing this. So I've decided when I've trained clients, I've had just a better approach by giving them a range of sets to do. And like, when that looks bad for the day, like say they wheel in and they get 3 sets of squat done and the 4th set looks bad, they go do something else. It's like, stop squatting, go do leg press for the rest of the session. You're still adapting, and at least you're adapting efficiently to a different stage of skill acquisition. Like if we look at this as skill acquisition, we don't have to ignore the skill we were trying to produce, but we can focus on the quality. If we make barbell squatting the only way to get better at barbell squatting, eventually people are going to get injured or bad at barbell squatting. We have to look at a more holistic approach to barbell movement, I think.
100%. And like you said before, a lot of people look at the squat and go, cool, well, I need bigger quads, so I'm just going to do this. Instead of going, okay, well, what else could I do that's not going to, one, fatigue me or be so demanding? Say if I do, like, say, 4 sets of squats, but all of a sudden I feel fucking fried. Well, I'm not going to go do a front squat, which is still probably, it's more taxing than a leg press. I can just load up a leg press and sit there all day.
It's so true. And like at the gym that I work at, like people will ask me like what to do to train legs. Like I always get this question, right? Like, how do you grow your legs? You just do a lot of squats. And I was like, man, I don't think if my intention was to ever make my legs big, would I get under a barbell? And it's like in a really like peasant way of looking at it, when I back squat, the load is on my back. When I leg press, the load is on my legs. Like if the most efficient path is from A to B in a straight line, like why would I put this fragile, shitty trunk in between big wheels and a ton of weight? Like, I'm not going to do that. Like I'm going to put it on my feet. My legs are huge. Put the load on my legs. Like don't put them on my shitty gut. Like that's so dumb to me. Like just in a visual way, if someone had no idea how to work out and you were like, build your legs, put the bar on your back or put the bar on your feet, everyone's going to say put the bar on your feet because it just makes sense. Like you're creating this glass ceiling or like rate limiter for performance by loading the spine if the goal isn't to get good at things that load the spine, right?
100%. And like if we look at powerlifting, obviously you're being yourself being powerlifting, us being powerlifting coaches, like one thing a lot of people miss is, as you said, oh, I need to grow my quads. Let's just fucking back squat. I know I had that belief for ages as well. It's like, well, I use my legs, but once you understand the movement more and you can break down the skill, as you said, can you identify other ways? Yeah. And more efficient ways.
In more efficient ways and like ways that don't deteriorate your ability to perform, right? Like I think like people have known for a long time and it's like widely publicized, like this idea of like being sore doesn't dictate a good workout, which is true. But also it's like being broken doesn't dictate you got stronger either. And in powerlifting, it's like this badge of honor, right? To be like wrecked. Oh, I felt wrecked today. I felt wrecked yesterday. Like my legs are wrecked. I've torn my quads twice. It's like, I would hope we get to a place in this sport where people's experience sits on more than just like how many injuries they've had.
Yeah.
And like I'm guilty of it too. Like me and Shallow, when we teach, we always joke about the fact that I have like 4 AC separations. Well, that's from like the dumb bench pressing I started with, right? And I was like, well, I've separated my shoulder 3 times, and it's like, that's dumb. Like that's not a certification for me to present in an interview. Like I have this, like that. I don't want to talk to you. I would like to not have any injuries, please.
But it's funny because the perception you come from, like I've torn quads, I've torn this motherfucker's perforated an eardrum, face slapping himself. Like, but all those, he belongs in Westside. All those things, like when we do them, we learn from them. We're like, okay, something went wrong. Whereas, as you said before, people wear like a badge of honor. It's like, I've done this, this, and this. Like, that's not good. You don't want to get injured.
Yeah, I mean, I don't hit myself in the ear anymore. I aim in between the ear and the jaw because I feel like you don't want to hit the jaw because you might swing it off as well. So I learned.
Yeah, you got to learn. Like, it's funny. Last year, I tore my right oblique.
Ooh.
Pause squatting. And it's like, that's a baseball injury. Like, people get that in rotational sports, and I got it doing a sagittal sport. Like, something obviously went terribly wrong. Or like went wrong for a long time. It's like, I don't wear that as a badge of honor. Like, I tell people, I'm like, hey, like, do hip airplane because you don't want to get a rotational injury doing a barbell. But that's just like, how can I load my structure? Like, what position can I get my spine and hips in where I can just like, I can become a leg press machine. And like, don't do that. No, so yeah, I think like you said, if you learn from it, it's okay, but it shouldn't be like some people's Instagram feeds are just the injuries. Like, it's like a police report sometimes, like what they've done to themselves. It's like, man, they never end up on the platform, right? They end up on the operating table. And I think that's a bad look for the sport.
100%. And I think it's like they get lost in the fact that you started powerlifting to compete, not get injured. Like,
yeah,
it's fucking, and you made a great comment before. It's like, we compete in a sagittal sport. We don't really step outside that, but, and I think you'll be able to elaborate on this more, training rotation becomes vitally important because we neglect it.
Yeah. And it's like, I always use the relationship, like I think track and field and sprinting, like people have this weird hard on for like weightlifting, like Olympic weightlifting. And they're like, these athletes are this and that. It's like, cool, man. I guess, I don't know. I could argue that, but I look at track and field as like, these guys get it, man. Like sprinters get it. That's a human being running faster than a car. And they've done this for a long time, longer than any of us have trained with a barbell. People have been running really fast and they kind of understand what they're doing. And they look at it from a skill acquisition point of view. Like I had track and field coaching, I had sprint coaching. And like I told the story on a podcast I did a few weeks ago. Like when I had track and field coaching, one day I didn't even get my shoes on and the guy sent me home. You just tell from my warm up that I didn't get it that day.
Really?
Like he could tell, he's like, you're tired, go home, don't bother. And I was like, no, like I'm an athlete, like I'm going to run tired or not. And he was like, there's no point. Like this is a skill. There's a skill to sprinting. You look like shit, go home and sleep. And it's like, we don't do that with the barbell. And it's like when you run track and field, like if you're going to race the 100, you run 200 meters. Like I don't race to be good at 100. Like I race 200 meters. So I'm fast in the 100. And same thing that goes with the barbell. Like just because it's sagittal, it's like, why wouldn't I want to have the horsepower to go into rotation? It's like, if that's going to be the worst thing that ever happens is I windmill this bar, I'd love to know that I have the stability at least to windmill it if that's the worst case scenario. But it's like, we forget about having something left in the tank, right? And we think like we have to be the shape of our sport. But powerlifting's so unathletic. Like when I did bobsled, there were guys on the bobsled team, like you said about that dude who like had to do 405 on any given day. When I did bobsled, like you had to be able to bench 145 kg for 10 on any given day. Like that's a requirement. Like you have to be able to do that to push a bobsled. Like that's insane. What is that? And like there were guys that they would call it a snatch, but it was basically like a barbell front raise with 275. Yeah, like guys would just grab the bar and just take 275 over their head from like their hip. And then they would jump on a 50-inch box. Like guys are jumping 2.5 feet in the air, like a meter in the air, and then front raising 275 and benching 3 plates for 10 reps. Like these guys could get under a bar and dummy half the people that train for powerlifting. But it's because like they shoot down range when they train. It's like they have to be able to push a 300-pound sled or 150 kg sled. They better be able to push 150 kg for 10 reps. So that same thing goes to powerlifting. It's like, it's a sagittal sport, but my ability to cognitively operate either side of my body allows me to be better under that barbell. because it's like I just always have that little bit extra horsepower. Yeah. Like if your skill ends at bending your knees, that's a really short runway. If my skill ends at like bending my knees, abducting my hips, dorsiflexing my ankles, absorbing and resisting and exerting ground force, I have a lot more in my toolbox, right? Like I have way more gears on my bike than you have on yours. And I think that's what goes to show for unilateral work is like, you're going to have a lot more horsepower and you're going to have a lot more longevity when shit goes wrong.
100%.
I think too often people sort of miss that sort of, they stick in that one dimension almost, I like to call it. They just treat themselves as a one-dimensional object and forget that there's so many other things you could be doing that could certainly be helping you.
And I think it's another thing, like coming from a mindset, the way we perceive ourselves is like, if we want to call ourselves athletes, which I don't think we are, like we train one modality of we train strength. Like, an athlete, I consider someone to be like a sprinter. They're fucking agile, they're flexible, they're strong, they're fast, they're everything. So it's like, if we want to call ourselves athletes, we got to think like one.
Start training like one.
Exactly. We got to start training like one.
Yeah. And it's like when I did bobsled, I realized that because like I'd come from powerlifting into bobsled and like I was decent at powerlifting and whatnot. And then I got to bobsled. I was like, oh, these guys are athletes. Like they can do more than me in the weight room. And then they can run really fast in like negative 20 degrees. That's a different game. So I think that's when it humbled me to like, oh, okay, like powerlifting is just working out in front of people. Like you're just, what are you doing? Like you're in a hotel lobby listening to, we'll let the bodies hit the floor again. So I think that humbled me. And that's like when I did bobsled is when I started to be like, okay, how do you acquire skill? Like how can we make this more skillful and more athletic and prepare people for more? And that's the thing too, like you can move a lot of weight in powerlifting really slow, but like there's guys who sprint, who squat the same amount of weight, but they just do it twice as fast. And it's like, you can't even, when you look at athletes lift heavy weights fast, you can't even contemplate what percentage that must be.
Yep.
Because it's so far submaximal. It's like, what could this guy actually do if he thought it was okay to move slow? It's exponential what they can do. So it's like, how can we apply that to powerlifting, right? In terms of just getting stronger, being more athletic. Because it's like the hyper-specificity thing. So not with Prescript, but with my own business, K2 Coaching, where I do a lot of consulting, somehow like I do a lot of consulting in the baseball world. I never even played baseball, but like this is the thing I do now. And I got like all these followers that play baseball. It's crazy. It's super cool. I'm very grateful for the opportunity. But that's a sport where hyper-specificity like takes the piss. Like they go nuts. I was talking to a guy yesterday and he's like, yeah, we do weighted ball drills. Like a ball weighs like 5 ounces in a game, but like they have 7 ounce, 9 ounce, like they just have heavier and heavier baseballs and they throw them. And I'm like, that's so hyper specific, like, but that doesn't make any sense. Like I'm never going to throw a 10 ounce baseball and the trajectory and the physics behind me throwing a really heavy ball, throwing a light ball, they change. Like that's specific, but also non-specific at the same time. Like it doesn't have to get that way. And it's like, it sounds goofy when we talk about baseball. Like we could talk about any sport and be like, what if a basketball player just threw a 20-pound medicine ball? Like, would he get better at basketball? Like, no, that's dumb. Like, that's so stupid. We don't see that in powerlifting. Like the guy making every movement look like a barbell movement. Like, you don't have to do that, right? Like everything doesn't have to be a barbell good morning. Like you don't have to do a barbell good morning on a bench. You don't have to do a barbell good morning on a back extension machine. Like you don't have to do a barbell good morning out of the preacher curl stand. Like you can do non-specific exercise. I promise it'll translate. I think hyperspecificity is less easy to spot in powerlifting because we're already so hyper-specific. So when we get even weirder with it, we just forget that we're being dumb. Whereas in other sports, it looks obvious that someone's doing dumb shit.
100%. I said recently, like, we can train skill because the skill is our sport. Whereas something like, rugby, people trying to replicate rugby drills in the weight room, it's like, what the fuck are you doing? Stop.
Yeah.
Just get stronger.
Just like you're in the gym to get more conditioned, to get stronger, as you said. You're not there to make him a better skillful player. That's going to be done out on the paddock throwing a fucking ball. Exactly. We're not that coach. I'm here to get you strong.
Yeah. And like in dealing with athletes, I have to always talk them off the ledge that way too. It's like, this doesn't have to look like that movement. And then you get powerlifters, and two, you're like, hey, like every exercise doesn't have to have a barbell. Everything doesn't have to be a squat. And it's like,
it could be a deadlift.
Yeah. The only thing it can't be is a bicep curl or a bench press if you train with me. Like, forever. Like, don't ever. If you're ever bigger than me, I fire you as a client. But I think have everybody weigh in. As long as they're lighter than me, they can train. But no, it's like, yeah, we just like lose the plot that way, right? It's like, yeah, like rugby gets better on the field. The barbell gets better in the squat rack. Like the squat rack is where you do skill. That's the rugby field of powerlifting. The minute you leave the squat rack, stop trying to make stuff look like powerlifting.
Yeah.
Do the other stuff. Like bodybuilders have huge wheels and abs because they do bodybuilder stuff. Like just do what they do. You don't have to teach them anything. They know more than you.
It's such a weird, like what you said then is like, if we want to get bigger, all right, who is the most jacked people we know? Bodybuilders.
Yeah.
So why don't we just do that? But it's like this, we don't want to look at a bodybuilder because powerlifters hate bodybuilders, but it's like,
so bizarre.
Yeah.
Someone asked me, like on a Q&A I did on the gram, someone was like, what's your favorite exercise? And I said, lying leg curl, like the hamstring curl machine.
Yeah.
Someone's like, are you kidding me? It's not a barbell machine. I'm like, no. They're like, why wouldn't it be like a RDL? I'm like, cause that's dumb. Because I'm loading my shitty back. Like, no, the lying leg curl is sick. Like, I have big hamstrings because I do lying leg curl 4 days a week. Like, that's my thing. I love that thing. Like, I own it at the gym. Like, when I put my short shorts on, everybody leaves the lying leg curl alone. You know what I mean? Like, I put my quarter in, I'm riding the pony, so get out of the way. But, like, that's my favorite thing, man. And that's my favorite thing because bodybuilders have sick hamstrings, and I've been to enough powerlifting meets where they don't. So I'm going to do what that big dude in the balloon pants is doing. You know what I mean? Like the guy with the striped compression shorts on is the guy I'm following around. So
fuck. I love that thing though. Like it's that compression pants skins. It's just takes me back to the old school, like before that time. You know, like the Ronnie Coleman videos where he's like leg pressing 1,000 pounds or whatever and he's knee wrapped. Man, I lived in that zone for such a long time. I thought I was Ronnie.
There's a Welsh powerlifter, Chris Jenkins, I think. He wrote a couple articles for like a couple magazines back in the day. But man, I used to watch his videos all the time. He's just this like shredded Welsh guy. Yeah. And he trains for powerlifting, but he only follows like Olympic lifting programs. And he's just like jacked and he's always doing leg raises. And I was like, I used to watch those videos all the time. And he had like the Ronnie Coleman pants on. And he was like squatting like 225 kg for reps. And I was like, well, this guy knows what's up. Like, I got to spike my hair and pierce my nipples if I want to get strong. And that's what I
So did you do both or just the one?
Yeah, I didn't do any. I pussied out. Yeah.
Oh, that's fucking great.
The knee wraps hurt enough. I didn't even get to the nipple piercing. I just thought, fuck it.
Oh, knee wraps are an acquired skill in itself. Fuck.
Yeah, I've always wanted to try it. I never have. I don't know if I ever will.
Oh, you got to do it
for sure.
Oh, bring your legs over here. We'll wrap them up. Nice.
Yeah. Won't make it back on the plane.
That's fucking sick.
Yeah, but one day I think I'll take the plunge. I'll put the knee wraps on, whatever.
Are you going to compete again?
Yeah, for sure. I was supposed to compete this year till COVID happened. Like I had three meets planned, and then that got weird. So whenever anything opens up, like I'll do the first meet and just see what's happened. Like, I don't know. You know, I'm doing high bar squat and bridge floor press. So I'm sure those will transfer over to nothing.
But you know, obviously you do a lot of work now. You obviously got your own coaching, and then you do a bit of work with Prescript as well. And big congratulations, you guys just launched the RXD, the programming that fucking took off well.
Yeah, that was pretty cool, man. Like the RX stuff, we all went to San Jose after like a lot of planning and like physically just making those videos. Must have been like we made like 400 videos. It was like 8 hours a day. I went to California. I never saw the sun. Yeah. just like a lot of caffeine and like screwing up how to explain cable Y rate. But no, it was good, man. It was nice to get all of us in the same room, and we all have different approaches, but we all see eye to eye at the end of the day on the same intention. And it was neat, I think, with Prescript, because you have Shallow, you have like Junta who does weightlifting, you have me, and like I'm just a guy in his basement. But it's cool just to get all our ideas on paper and like be able to put this app together where we can start to like give people intention. Because again, like you guys asked me about skill acquisition. I don't know why I have like talk about this all the time, but like this is my thing now. I'm the guy, the Renaissance man of skill acquisition. But it was cool to finally have an app where like you can put it on paper. It's like just download this. It's easy. It's simple. It answers every question. Don't have to answer these DMs anymore. So that's what I like most about it.
Just send eggplants now.
Yeah, send eggplants. That's the payment. I don't even have PayPal. I just have OnlyFans. Like, what's your PayPal? It's I have an OnlyFans.
Oh,
you freak. But yeah,
I love it.
Cool, man. Prescript's been fun. Like I was so lucky to have the opportunity to work with Shallow. Obviously, like he's a very smart guy. Prescript does some cool stuff, and it's cool for me. Like I don't have any education. I have high school, so like whatever grade 12 is in Australia or high school is in Australia, that's what I have. And just certifications and like try-heartedness.
Yeah.
So it's neat to be able to like travel around the world with Shallow and do podcasts like with you guys and get to talk, right? And it's just like so much of what I've done is experiential, and to be able to stand with Shallow and combine like clinical academia with like, hey, this is straight experiential learning. It's cool to show people both sides of it. Because I know when I started with no education, like I'd go up against guys with degrees and I was like, man, I don't deserve to be here. I still don't think I do. So it's like, it's cool to be able to tell other people like me that might just be in it because they love it. It's like, hey, if you just have the right intention, you try hard, like you can learn stuff. Like I get to talk to people in Major League Baseball now about training. Like that's crazy to me. Whoever would have thought when I was doing conjugate the first year I trained.
That's where you'd be. That's fucking sick.
It just speaks to the like how the universal language that is the barbell. Like, I mean, you're in fucking Ontario right now, you know?
Yeah.
It's like we connected just because we like to squat.
Yeah.
And I slid into your DMs.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. And like, that's not the first time it's happened. But guys like to watch me squat and they slide into my DMs. So
it's like I'm a frequent in his DMs.
No, it's crazy, right? It's like, it's so crazy to think like so many opportunities I've had in my life came from like trying out a barbell. Like, how does this thing work? Like now I get to have a career based on it. I get to talk to you guys. Like yesterday I was talking to a dude in California. 2 weeks before I was talking to a guy in Seattle, and like, man, like I just live in Toronto. I'm just a guy. And like now I get to, and it's not anything about fame. It's just cool to connect with people and you have this like general interest, and it's every conversation is just about growing, and it's very humble. And, I got a girlfriend out of all of this. So it all worked out in the end, man.
Did you slide in the DMs as well, bro? Is that how we met?
Yeah, a bit of combined DM sliding, but slid right out there. Like, at the end of the day, like for every virgin who listens to this podcast, I know there's a bunch of you with your ears glued to the iPhone right now. You can make it too, man. You can make it too.
It's got to be cool being able to, because obviously it's a passion for you, this skill acquisition and teaching everyone, but being able to share it now with such a platform out there, right?
No, it's really neat, man. And like I always joke about like, why do I get to talk about skill acquisition? But it's very validating to have something that I found work for myself or work with people that I work with. I just ruined it with the whole virgin thing.
I'm literally just going like, just a shout out to Andrew Lang watching this, you fucking virgin. I know you're listening. He's one of my clients. He's fine.
I'll show him the skill acquisition model for sure. Works for anything, bro. Works for anything. But no, it's so neat, right? Like it's crazy to think like that people message me and they're like, can you call me and explain skill acquisition? And it's like, yeah, man. And to think other people see value in this is very validating, and it's motivating to learn more. Like I learned about skill acquisition by reading about how to train old people on how to grocery shop without injuring themselves. That was the purpose of the study. Like the article I read on skill acquisition was, can old people learn to read a grocery list and push a shopping cart at the same time? That was the task. And from that has come me consulting with Major League Baseball.
Fuck.
I don't know how I made that connection, but whatever. So it's neat that way. And like you said, like skill acquisition is something I'm passionate about. And I think it's very easy to understand. And I think like my goal with this is like, if someone understands the 3 stages of this, they don't need me anymore. Like that's it. Like you can plug anything into these once you get the base principles of it, and you can use that template forever. Like it doesn't need to change. It's not arbitrary. It's not proprietary. Like when I first started working with Prescript, I'd always have the quote, like, knowledge isn't proprietary. Like it's there for everyone. Like I don't own skill acquisition. No one does. These are very simple things to understand because I understand them. So it's like, it's not proprietary. Like message me. There's no monetization to this. I just want people to have a way that they can do this without always being a paywall or something having to attach someone's name to it.
Yeah.
Like I had someone message me the other day, like shout out Matt Wenning, but someone messaged me the other day and they're like, I use the Matt Wenning warm-up protocol or template or something. And it's just like alphanumeric exercise selection, like A1, A2, A3, A4. I'm like, dude, don't put someone's name on that. Like that's just a thing that has always existed.
Yeah.
People have always done it. Stop making it about some bald guy with a goatee all the time, right? So, and that's what I want with skill acquisition. Like as much as I like teaching people about it and talking about it, it's like you don't have to tag me in it. I don't need credit for this. Like this is just a thing. I'm raising awareness for a thing that happened long before I existed. So, but hopefully it brings just more intelligence and intention to training.
And it's what you said. It's simple once you understand it. You know, it's almost too simple, but there's a degree of complexity behind it that you need to understand first before it becomes simple.
Yeah. And I think that goes to like, I always talk about like the art versus habitude of like people who are really, really good at something. And then you try and do it and you realize like what they made look simple is really hard. Like if you've ever seen an artist like grab a pencil and they just like draw a perfect circle, like that's crazy when you see someone just like make a perfect circle and you're like, what the fuck? And then you grab it and it's like a square. Like, what the hell happened? Like that guy didn't get really good at drawing circles. Like that guy really understands how a pencil feels. Yeah. It's like an artist could pick up with their eyes closed like 5 different mediums to make art with, and they could explain them. Like I pick up this pencil and it's like I'm digging to China with it trying to write my name, but it's like somebody else picks it up and like just the difference in pressure they can apply with their fingers, like that's mastery. Like that's art versus habitude. And I think if people approach the barbell the same way, it's like you can make music, you can make art with a barbell, as simple as it may be, but there's a whole wormhole you can go down about like what angle do you place your wrist at? Like how do you apply fingers to a bar, and like how can I exert force through these things? But like that's mastery. Like people want to look at Shallow do some kind of crazy dumbbell row, but it's like he can do that because of his deep understanding of how the anatomy works and breathing and how whatever the musculature of your left side is slightly atrophied to the right side because of the displacement of your heart and lungs. And dude, that's mastery, man. Like I don't know shit about that stuff, but it's like he can put his body into crazy positions because he has that deep understanding of his body. And I think if more people took that conscious approach to the gym, like we'd be better off. Like people would be more jacked or less injured. So I think it's becoming, like Shallow says, like a permanent resident to fitness and not a tourist. And that comes from acquiring a skill.
Absolutely, man.
Fucking love it.
I mean, I couldn't have said it better myself. I think you just nailed it.
Yeah.
Mate, before we wrap up, we actually have 10 super important questions.
Yeah.
These are rapid fire questions. First thing that comes to your mind, whatever you say is completely fine.
It's probably the most important questions you've ever answered.
That's a big call.
It probably will be. I'm not that important of a guy, so this is going to be deep.
Where is the one place you'd like to travel or explore in the world?
Africa, the continent.
Cool. If you could travel to Mars knowing you couldn't come home, would you go?
Yes.
Yes.
I fucking knew you'd say yes.
Can you dance?
No.
Damn it. What is 12 times 12?
12 times 12, I don't know, 24.
Close. What sport or activity do you wish you could do or would you do that you haven't done?
baseball.
Nice. Now, you're going to be given an elephant for the next 24 hours. What are you going to do with it?
Ride it.
Nice. Anywhere in particular?
Probably like be underneath it, or I guess it's riding me.
Hey! Yeah, it is. Describe your life in one word.
Crazy.
Yeah.
Favorite sporting memory of yourself?
I can't remember my first concussion, so my last concussion.
Now, how long is a piece of string?
As long as it is.
Now, what is the last piece of music you listened to?
Fuck, I hope it's Metallica.
Metallica.
Blue Lights by Georgia Smith.
Sick.
Oh, perfect. Mate, that was they were pretty good answers there. I just want to reiterate that 12 times 12 is 144.
That's what it was. You know, I knew it was something like that.
When you said 24, I was like, he just added them together.
Well, like I do powerlifting, so that's as far as I can count. Like the maximum volume I've ever done is 24. I don't know what one.
That's too many
for me. Commitment problems.
I just got one quick question. When these Major League Baseball people come and speak to you, like I've had experience with some other sports over here, but like, do you have to like firstly tell them like, I've never played baseball. I've actually never played your sport.
I never tell them. I just keep it to myself in case I have to. And then if I have to talk about it later, I try and get my way out of it.
I will then
Google anything about baseball you don't know.
Yeah.
I will now edit that out of this podcast so you don't get that.
I always have Google open in the background, and I'm like, "What was? Yeah, once that you're breaking up." Okay, got.
That's awesome, man. Thank you so much for your time this morning. It was your morning.
A ton of fun, man.
It was absolutely, bro. Like I think a lot of people listening to this can learn so much just from the way you think. And man, we'd love to get you back on once you get back on that platform. We'll have a chat again.
Yeah, that'd be awesome, man.
So where do we find you?
Oh yeah, where do we find you?
How do the people contact you out there?
So k2coaching.ca is the website. There's a contact page there for online coaching or consultations. I do both, or just reach out and ask me a question. Like not everything in life is monetized, as well as my Instagram, I believe is my first name dot my last name. So Killian.Hamilton. Yes, it is. Killian.Hamilton on Instagram. Yeah. I don't fucking know. DM me.
Yeah.
At not your dick.
Yeah, I'm glad you said that because I need boundaries.
He needs lots of them, bro.
I don't have enough space left on my phone for any more dick pics. I'm not paying for the iCloud. So.
It's a really funny story that I'm going to jump in and tell because I've been having I had an MRI, got a labral tear, and then it's been exacerbated by this hip shift I'm experiencing. And we work closely with a bloke we recently had a podcast with, Jordo, Paul Pegler. And he's looked at me squat. He's like, you have half an ass. And I'm like, what do you mean? He's like, your left glute is so underdeveloped. And I'm like, nah. But this is a weird connection. But my missus took a photo of me just wearing this T-shirt. And I had nothing on that I was sending to a bloke down in Melbourne because he sent me up the shirt. I was like, fuck yeah. And I noticed that my ass is like this. I was like, wow, I actually have half an ass. But yes, segue.
You're lucky you're going to get photos of an assless shirt photo too.
Of a Daffy Duck. I'm going to get an Australian Daffy Duck in my DM.
Yeah. Just so you can check out his glutes, you know?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah. It's for research.
It is for research.
Man, you're an absolute legend. Thank you so much. We'll put everything up in the show notes. If people want to reach out, get in contact. But man, thank you so much for your time. Enjoy the rest of your day.
Anytime. We'll do it again.
Thanks, brother.
Thanks, brother.
See you, man.
Yeah.